Hey y'all, so today is my birthday, and as has become a tradition on my birthday, I'm going to be doing another Harry Potter related video. On my 21st birthday, I did a Harry Potter tag. On my 22nd birthday, I ranked all of the Harry Potter books, and I'll leave both of those up in the cards. And so it only seemed logical for my 23rd birthday to rank the Harry Potter movies. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. As you'll be aware if you've seen my book ranking video, I have a very definitive ranking on the books. It hasn't changed in many years, and it probably will not change for many years. But my ranking on the movies is a lot more fluid. I can easily divide them in half between my favorite half and my least favorite half, but other than that, these rankings are pretty fluid, so I definitely expect these to change in the coming years, so don't get mad at me in the comments if you don't like exactly where a movie is placed, because like I said, these move around a lot more than my book rankings do. I have a definite top 3 that I really love, and they change places a lot. I have a definite bottom 2 that kind of stays in the same place, but other than that, it's just a very mobile list because my opinions on the movies are a lot less solid than the ones on the books. So let's go ahead and jump into the list, starting out at number 8 with Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. So if you've seen my book ranking video, or basically any other video where I mention the Harry Potter series, you will know that this beautiful, amazing book right here, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, is my favorite book in the Harry Potter series. So that is why this movie is so disappointing. Listen, I like all the Harry Potter movies, it's my favorite series ever, but this was just a disappointment. I love book 6 for so many reasons, but the number one thing that I love about book 6 is all of the pensive scenes and all of the backstory we get on Voldemort, and that is essentially non-existent in this movie. When I first saw it in theaters, I didn't really think too much about that. I enjoyed it, but after all these years of rewatching it, I just am so disappointed with the way they handled everything with Voldemort's backstory and all the Horcruxes. To be perfectly, entirely honest, I would actually be surprised if someone who hadn't read the books came out of watching this movie actually understanding what they needed to understand to prepare themselves for the 7th movie. I just feel like this movie made it impossible to understand both Voldemort as a character and everything dealing with Horcruxes unless you've already read the books, which some people haven't. And like with a lot of other Harry Potter fans, I think that the tone of this movie was kind of off. I feel like they were really going for some sort of like teen romantic comedy tone for a lot of the movie, and I just didn't like that. I mean, obviously it doesn't go like full teen rom-com, but it's definitely a lot more of that than other movies have been, and while the 6th book does deal with the romantic relationships more than pretty much any of the other books, I feel like they were too heavy-handed with it in this, and anything dealing with Harry and Ginny in this movie was just really awkward and uncomfortable. That being said, there were some really awesome aspects of this. I think that most of the stuff that happens from when Harry and Dumbledore leave Hogwarts until the end is pretty well done. I am disappointed that there's not some sort of major battle at Hogwarts like there is in the book, but I understand why they didn't leave it in. So I do enjoy like the ending of the movie as far as the adaptation, but a lot of this is just not so much fun to watch given how much I love the 6th book and given how all the pensive scenes are completely non-existent in this movie. Moving on to number 7 on my list, which is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I feel like I don't have too much to say about this movie because, once again, referencing my book ranking video, this is my least favorite book. It's my least favorite story in the series, and so it's not so much the movie itself or the adaptation, but just the story as a whole. Obviously, I still really enjoy it. Like I've already said, I love every single movie in this series, but this is just the story that has latched on to me the least in the Harry Potter series, and I don't think that the movie did anything to boost it higher in my ranking. The only reason it's not last is because I really didn't like the adaptation for Half-Blood Prince. I feel like a lot of us can agree that the first 2 movies, like with the first 2 books, are still kind of trying to find their footing. With the movies, some of the aspects quality-wise definitely get better as the movies go along, like the acting and obviously any sort of special effects, since these are older movies, but I feel like with this one, it has kind of that lower quality aspect of the first couple movies, but without the same charm and whimsy of the first movie. Like I said, still a movie I really like, it just doesn't stack up to some of the later movies on this list. Moving on to number 6, which is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Like I said at the beginning, the first 2 movies that I mentioned are the definitive last 2, and we've gotten into this kind of ambiguous area where stuff moves around a lot, and that's definitely the case with Order of the Phoenix. I say this every time I talk about the movie, but they basically took the longest book in the series and adapted it into the shortest movie in the series. So they cut out a lot of stuff, and while I understand that a lot of it is necessary, I would have enjoyed to see some of the stuff that they cut. Because for me, I feel like this is the most forgettable movie in the series. I feel like Umbridge was really, really great, and a lot of the stuff dealing with the DA was really cool. But other than that, and the ending at the Ministry, I feel like a lot of this movie is just a little bit, like I said, forgettable. And when I say forgettable, I mean in relation to the other movies, not in relation to movies in general. I think we've established that I love all of these movies. A large chunk of the middle of this book is a lot of classroom stuff and a lot of school stuff and a lot of dealing with Umbridge. So I understand why a lot of this movie is kind of forgettable. But at the same time, I feel like there were some really cool things that got left out. For example, one of my favorite scenes in the book is when Harry and the Weasley twins get banned from ever playing Quidditch again because of a scuffle that they have with Draco. And I know that it's not like the most relevant to the plot 100% of the time, but I really would have loved to see that because it would have made something in the middle of the movie a little bit more dynamic and interesting and memorable. I don't know, I don't really have any huge major problems with this one. It's just a little bit lower on the list than ones that I liked more. Next up, and rounding out the bottom half of the movies, is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Like I mentioned when I was discussing the Chamber of Secrets, the first couple of movies are still kind of finding their footing. And I think that the clearest example of this is with the exterior of Hogwarts. They haven't really decided what they want it to look like, and in the first movie, Hagrid's hut is like 5 feet away from the school. Like, they can run like a straight line to Hagrid's hut and just be there. Just little things like that that got changed once the third movie came around and they really found their footing. And like I said, the child acting was a little bit wonky in the first couple movies, but what this does have going for it is all of the charm and whimsy of getting into the Harry Potter world for the first time and experiencing this wizarding world that's so awesome. Fun fact, this actually used to be my least favorite movie in the series, and I'm saying this like after all the movies had come out. This was my least favorite in the series for one major reason, which should be obvious if you know who my favorite characters are, and that is that there are about 20 million amazing Weasley twins moments in the book, and one of them is in the movie, like half of one of them. It's just like, ugh. Like, I get it. They're little moments, they're hard to include, I understand why they weren't there. But it made me so sad that the only like Weasley twin moment that was included was when Fred pretended to be George when they were getting on to platform 9 3/4. Like, everything else was non-existent. They left out the moment where they're making fun of Percy for being a prefect. They left out the moment where they say they'll send Ginny a toilet seat from Hogwarts. They left out the moment when they're singing the school song in the Great Hall at a funeral pace march with Dumbledore conducting them. They left out the scene at Christmas when they get their sweaters and they call themselves Gred and Forge. I could list off like 10 other amazing Weasley twins moments that I absolutely love from the book, and it just makes me really sad that like half of one was included in the movie. But like I said, a lot of what makes this movie really awesome is all of the whimsy and charm of experiencing the world for the first time, and that is definitely a major bonus for this movie. Also, I do want to just really quickly shout out one of the best aspects of the first couple movies, which is Richard Harris as Dumbledore. He was so good. He played the role exactly as it's written in the books, and I will never forget in The Goblet of Fire when the guy who replaced him screams, "Harry, did you put your name in the goblet?" Like, it's just so out of character for Dumbledore, and Richard Harris did it so well in the first 2 movies, and it's so sad that he passed away too soon to finish the series because he was just so good. So like I mentioned earlier, I have a very definitive top 3 that kind of moves around pretty fluidly. So this is the one that has just missed out on that, and that is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire in at number 4. Both the book and the movie adaptation usually rank pretty high for most fans because it's one of the most exciting and fast-paced books and movies in the series. And I absolutely love that aspect about it, but on both of my rankings, Goblet of Fire comes in somewhere around the middle. I definitely always consider it to be in my favorite half rather than my least favorite half, just because there are other ones that I love even more than this one, but I don't have too many complaints about this one. And the minimal complaints that I do have are just about it as an adaptation. Because this movie left out some things that I felt were kind of important, and I think they left it out kind of because they were a bit lazy. If you notice throughout the series, they only include house elves when they're absolutely necessary to the plot because it's a lot of CGI special effects. And so they completely left both Winky the house elf and Dobby the house elf out of this movie. And those two characters added so much complexity and depth to the plot in the book, so it makes it a little bit disappointing to see the movie and not have them in it at all. Quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if someone who hadn't read the books went to see the last couple Harry Potter movies in theaters and were like, what is this little house elf named Dobby? Like, Harry seems to know him, but where did he come from? Because the last time we saw him in the movies was in number 2, which was all the way back in the early 2000s. But apart from that, everything dealing with the Crouch family really needed to be more fleshed out because it was really well explained in the book and pretty much not explained in the movie. Like, it took 2 seconds to explain it and just like skim the surface of the information. That being said, the Triwizard Tournament is entertaining 100% of the time. It is one of the most interesting and dynamic plot lines throughout the series, and I do really enjoy this movie. The movie is also a little bit more heavy-handed than the book when it deals with like the beginnings of the romantic plot lines, which I actually kind of like because I remember not being sure about whether Hermione was supposed to be a canon ship until like the end of book 6 or book 7, so like I am glad that it made it a little bit more obvious starting earlier, especially for people who didn't read the books and wouldn't have been aware of that. But yeah, overall this is definitely a really awesome movie. I think in general it's a pretty good adaptation. There are a couple complaints like I said, but this is one of the most exciting fast-paced movies in the series. Moving into the top 3, which like I have said many times is very fluid. Any of these could be number 1 at any given point in time, but this is the order that I've gone with for this video. Coming in at number 3 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. I feel like this is kind of a controversial placement for this because a lot of people really don't like this one and I don't get it. I mean, I guess it makes sense that I would have this higher than most people because a lot of people really complained about all the camping scenes, and I really enjoyed that part of the book. I remember a lot of people complaining when they decided to split the last book into 2 movies, but I was one of the people who was 100% behind it because after I read the book, I was like, how are they going to adapt this into a movie? Because you can't leave out anything from that book at all. I feel like a lot of people don't like the slower pace of this movie and see it just as a precursor to the 8th movie, but what I see it as is a little bit slower pace, yeah, but a lot of development with the world and with the characters and just with everything in general dealing with the series. I just think that this is a really interesting installment in the series. This is the one movie in the series where 99.999% of it is not at Hogwarts. And while that's kind of sad in the fact that Hogwarts is such a great place and it's always really great to be back at Hogwarts, we get to see so much of the world outside of Hogwarts, and that is really awesome. Admittedly, a fairly large reason as to why I love this movie so much is because it's just so true to the book. Both this one and Deathly Hallows Part 2 are such good adaptations of the book because for me, both of them are thoroughly entertaining and well-paced, but they're also incredibly true to the source material. Obviously, like any adaptation, there are deviations, but I just think that this was done really well, and I don't understand when people don't like it because of the pacing. Obviously, you're 100% entitled to your own opinion, and I'm not saying you're wrong if you don't like this because of the pacing. I'm just saying that in my own mind, it doesn't compute because of how much I love this movie, and I actually almost swapped it with number 2 on this list, so that's how much I love this one. So the movie that did come in at number 2 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. This is just such an epic conclusion to the Harry Harry Potter series, and I'm not sure that they could have done it any better. I mean, there are definitely a couple things that, yes, I would change, but this was just done so well. Like with the first half of Deathly Hallows, this is just such a good adaptation. They stayed so true to the source material, and any things that they did change made complete and total sense. I remember going to see this in the theater at a midnight showing where they showed part 1 and part 2 back to back, and it was just so great, and I sobbed my way through this last movie. It was so emotional. Just everything about this movie is really, really great. I can't think of too many problems that I had with it at this point. I'm sure that there are a couple that'll come to mind after I film, but the only one that makes me kind of sad is the way that Hermione actually becomes a legit thing in the movie, because I love the way that it happens in the book, because if you don't remember, essentially Ron is saying we need to try to save the house elves because they're in the kitchens and they don't know what's going on, and Hermione just loses it and kisses him because he's caring about the house elves like she has for so many years, and he made fun of her for so many years for it, and now he's trying to help the house elves, and it's just such a cute moment because he finally is understanding her, or acknowledging that he cares about things that she cares about. It's just such a cute moment, and I love it. And it was kind of downplayed a little bit in the movie for my liking, but they did that because they didn't include the house elves in movies 4 and 5 like they should have, so then we could have had that amazing movie moment. So yeah, that was a long rant, but overall, like I said, I really love this movie. So we've now gotten to number 1 on the list, my favorite Harry Potter movie, which should be pretty obvious at this point, so without any further ado, it is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Although my top 3 is very fluid, this is normally the one I name as my favorite movie. It's just the one that I've loved the most for the longest amount of time. It's also very hard for me to explain why I love this one so much. I love that it walks the line between the whimsy of the first couple movies and the darkness of the later installments, and I think that the movie does that really well. And while plot-wise, I think that the 4th movie and the 4th book are the major turning point in the series because Voldemort now has a physical form, I think that in terms of the movies, this is kind of the turning point because this is when they start to be really good. Like I said earlier, the quality of the first couple movies is a little questionable and they're still trying to find their footing, but in this one they hit their stride and it's so amazing. Like with the Prisoner of Azkaban book, one of my favorite aspects of this movie is the time turner sequence. It's just done so well, and it's even more awesome to watch it on the screen. Apart from that though, the only thing I can really say about how much I love this movie is that it just has this X factor that's so hard to define. Just something about the entire mood of this movie and the way that it's shot and just everything about it makes me absolutely love it. And on top of that, I will legitimately never get over Hermione punching Draco in the face because that is just one of the best things in the entire series. Plus, like in the book, we get introduced to a lot of characters who become major staples in the series going forward. I just think that this movie was definitely a major turning point in the movie series, and I really love it. It is my favorite movie in the series. So that is my ranking of the 8 Harry Potter movies. Like I said at the beginning, this list is a lot more fluid than my book rankings, so if you have a different opinion, obviously you are entitled to your opinion. I respect your opinion, please respect mine. I'm thinking the next year on my birthday, I want to rank my favorite and or least favorite characters in the Harry Potter series, so that should be interesting. I don't know. We'll see. I might do that before I get to that point. I don't know. As always, I will leave links down in the description to my blog, Twitter, and Goodreads. Please add me as a friend on Goodreads. I would love to be friends with all of you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.